Hi, I'm Levi Vonk. I'm a Ph.D. student in medical anthropology at UC Berkeley, and I'm a CLAS Field Summer Research Grant recipient. This summer, I lived with one Central American migrant man who I've been working with for the past few years to document his attempts to legalize himself in Mexico City. So we met back in 2014. I was living in Mexico on a Fulbright research grant, and I was working with Central American migrants traveling through Mexico. I was living in migrant shelters primarily, and just trying to figure out why so many people were fleeing their countries. I ended up meeting my collaborator there in a migrant shelter while a migrant caravan was passing through. Going into the project, I had really hoped to look at how migrants in Mexico are attempting to legalize themselves either through the asylum system or in other ways, and what kind of obstacles there are to legalizing themselves. So one thing I did with this man was, he actually ended up getting documents, but he couldn't open a bank account, and so he couldn't find a job. So that's been a kind of a tricky thing, just trying to figure out the bureaucratic processes along the way of legalization. So one of the interesting things about anthropology is you have an idea before going to a place what you want to study, and then when you're on the ground it always seems like it changes somewhat because you start talking to people and you realize the situation isn't exactly what's maybe depicted in the media or abroad or something like that. I hadn't read anything that talked about how banking actually stops migrants from being able to integrate into the Mexican economy, because the whole idea is that once you get your work permit, you can legally open a bank account, you can get a job, and everything's fine. But what we found while I was on the ground is that that's not actually the case. It's a lot more complicated, there's a lot more bureaucracy, and so I wanted to figure out, well, what is that actual bureaucracy? Like, what's the nitty-gritty of this situation? CLAS's summer field research grant was so helpful to me because it allowed me to stay in Mexico all summer long to do the work that I needed to do. I can't really, as an anthropologist, we need to be there on the ground living next to the people we're working with. The only way I could do that was, by being in Mexico. And so the CLAS Summer Field Research Grant allowed me to stay in Mexico as long as I felt it was necessary to get the data that I needed. I'm definitely planning on exploring these issues further. I'm a third year, and so next year I leave to go do full-time field work in Mexico for a year to 2 years. So this research grant was super helpful to me because I was able to make more contacts on the ground to make sure that when I move to Mexico full-time, I can hit the ground running and just really start cranking out my PhD research.